My sister's psycho Mill dragged my 7-year-old daughter off stage mid-performance in a jealous rage, screaming at the crowd, her grandsons are the real champions, not her. But her twisted revenge plot was just getting started and we exposed everything. I'm Elias, 36, a man, and my sister's mother-in-law physically dragged my 7-year-old daughter off a stage at her school talent show because she was jealous. And that monstrous act was only the beginning of our nightmare. It's funny how a family like a building can look perfectly stable from the outside. The paint is fresh, the lawn is mowed, and the holiday photos show nothing but smiling faces. But inside, if you know where to look, you can see the cracks in the foundation, the slow, relentless erosion caused by a single toxic source. In our family, that source was Carol, my sister Jenna's mother-in-law. My wife Talia and I have one child, our bright, funny, and endlessly creative daughter Maya. At 7 years old, she was the center of our universe. My younger sister Jenna was married to Greg, Carol's only son. They had 2 boys of their own, just a little older than Maya. On the surface, we were a close-knit extended family. We did birthdays, holidays, and the occasional weekend barbecue together. But beneath the polite chatter and passed-along potato salad, there was always a current of tension, and it always flowed from Carol. Carol was a woman who seemed to view the world through a lens of competition. Every achievement, every bit of good news was not something to be celebrated, but something to be measured against her own family's accomplishments. And her grandchildren were, in her eyes, the gold standard by which all other children were to be judged. Specifically, my child. I remember Maya's 4th birthday. Talia and I had saved up to buy her a beautiful brand new bicycle, her first one without training wheels. It was cherry red with a white basket and streamers on the handlebars. Maya's eyes lit up with a kind of pure, unadulterated joy that could power a city. She hugged it, she hugged us, she couldn't stop beaming. Later that day, Jenna and Greg arrived with Carol in tow. Carol surveyed the scene, her eyes landing on the shiny red bike. She offered a tight, thin smile. "Oh, how nice," she said, the word hanging in the air with a faint odor of disapproval. She then turned to her grandsons. "Don't you worry, boys, Grandma already got you your new all-terrain bikes for the summer, the ones with 21 gears, much more practical for the trails." Jenna shot me a quick, apologetic look but said nothing. Greg just nodded along, already accustomed to his mother's way of turning every situation into a victory for her team. The joy of Maya's moment was instantly deflated, replaced by a sour, uncomfortable feeling. My 4-year-old was too young to understand the nuance, but I understood it perfectly. Her gift had been publicly devalued. It wasn't a one-time thing. The examples are almost too numerous to count. When Maya came home from kindergarten with a certificate for being the best reader in her class, we hung it proudly on the fridge. The next time Carol visited, she spent 10 minutes talking about how her eldest grandson had scored in the 99th percentile on a standardized test that, she made sure to add, they don't even offer at Maya's little school. She wasn't just proud of her grandsons, she seemed to need them to be superior in every conceivable way. Any success of Maya's was not a joy to be shared, but a threat to be neutralized. Talia, my wonderful, logical Talia, saw it from day one. As an accountant, she's used to numbers and patterns, and the pattern of Carol's behavior was impossible to miss. "She's not just playing favorites, Elias," she told me one evening after a particularly draining family dinner. "It's more than that, she's trying to establish a hierarchy, and she needs us and Maya to be at the bottom." My sister Jenna was caught in the middle. She loved her sons and she loved her husband, but she was terrified of her mother-in-law. Carol had a powerful hold over Greg and by extension over their family's life. Jenna's default response was to smooth things over, to pretend the digs weren't happening, or to gently suggest we were misinterpreting things. "Oh, you know Carol," she'd say with a weak laugh. "She's just old-fashioned, she's just so proud of the boys." "There's a difference between being proud and being cruel, Jenna," I'd reply, my patience wearing thin. But she would just shrug, unwilling to confront the truth. This dynamic, Carol's targeted jealousy, Greg's passive enabling, Jenna's fearful silence, and our growing resentment, was the cracked foundation of our family. We just didn't know that the whole building was about to come crashing down, all because my little girl had the courage to step onto a stage and sing. The school talent show was the biggest event of the spring semester at Northwood Elementary. For weeks, the hallways buzzed with the excited chatter of kids practicing their acts. This year, for the first time, Maya wanted to participate. Her best friend Chloe played the piano and they had worked out a duet. Chloe would play the melody to "Somewhere Over the Rainbow" and Maya would sing. To say she was excited would be an understatement. For a month, our home was filled with the sound of her sweet, slightly off-key voice practicing the song. She sang in the car, in the shower, while drawing at the kitchen table. She would stand in the living room, using a hairbrush as a microphone, and ask Talia and me to be the audience. We'd clap and cheer every time, our hearts swelling with a love so fierce it felt like it could burst. This wasn't about her being the next pop star. It was about watching our child find something she loved and pursue it with unbridled passion. The week before the show, Jenna called. The conversation started normally enough, just catching up, but then her tone shifted, becoming hesitant. So, Carol was asking about the talent show, she began. She heard Maya was going to be in it. I felt a familiar knot tighten in my stomach. Okay. Well, she was just saying she feels bad that Liam and Noah aren't in it, Jenna said, referring to her sons. Greg didn't think they were ready, and they didn't really want to do it anyway, but Carol seems to think they were somehow overlooked. Overlooked, Jenna, it's a voluntary sign-up. Anyone who wanted to be in it could be. Nobody overlooked them, I said, trying to keep the frustration out of my voice. I know, she said quickly. I told her that, but you know how she is. She just got this idea in her head that it's not fair. She said something like, it's always about Maya, isn't it? And I don't know, Elias, she sounded really weird about it. She always sounds weird about it, I muttered. Don't worry about it, it has nothing to do with her or the boys, this is Maya's thing. Talia, who had overheard my side of the conversation, gave me a look that said, this isn't going to end well. She was right to be worried. 2 days before the show, Carol proved her right. We received a group family text from Greg. It was a picture of his older son, Liam, holding up a blue ribbon he'd won at a regional swim meet. The text read, so proud of our little champion, first place in the 50m backstroke. Within seconds, my phone buzzed again. It was a reply from Carol sent to the entire group, including me and Talia. THATSMY grandson, the message began in all caps. A real champion in a real competition. Some of us value actual athletic achievement over just singing a little song on a stage for a participation trophy. So proud of you, Liam. Some children just have what it takes. The silence that followed that text was deafening. It was so pointed, so deliberately cruel, that there was no way to misinterpret it. She had just publicly belittled my 7-year-old daughter's passion to the entire family. I felt a white-hot rage flash through me. Talia grabbed my hand. Don't, she said softly. Don't engage, that's what she wants. She wants a fight so she can play the victim. She was right. I took a deep breath and put the phone down, my hands trembling slightly. I didn't reply. Jenna didn't reply. No one did. The message just sat there, a monument to Carol's bitterness. I didn't tell Maya about the text, of course. She was in her own world of happy anticipation, laying out the sparkly blue dress she planned to wear for the show. Watching her so full of hope and innocence, I felt a deep protective instinct rise up in me. This show meant the world to her. It was a moment of pure, simple childhood joy, and I would not let Carol, with all her poison and jealousy, ruin it for her. The night of the talent show, we arrived at the school auditorium and found our seats. The air was electric with the energy of excited kids and proud parents. Maya, clutching my hand, was a bundle of nerves and excitement. What if I forget the words, Daddy? She whispered. You won't, I whispered back, squeezing her hand. But even if you do, it doesn't matter. You just go out there and have fun. We are so proud of you no matter what. I saw Jenna, Greg, and Carol take their seats a few rows behind us. I gave Jenna a brief, tight nod. She gave me a watery, nervous smile in return. Carol stared straight ahead, her face a mask of stone-cold indifference. The sight of her made my skin crawl. The foundation was cracking, and I had the terrible feeling we were all about to fall through. The first few acts were a charming mix of childhood ambition and adorable mistakes. There was a boy who told jokes, a trio of girls in matching tutus doing a dance routine, and a surprisingly skilled young magician who managed to pull a string of colorful scarves from his sleeve. The audience was warm and encouraging, applauding generously for every child who braved the stage. Then it was Maya's turn. The principal announced, and now please welcome Maya and Chloe, who will be performing Somewhere Over the Rainbow. My heart swelled as Maya walked onto the stage. She looked so small and beautiful in her sparkly blue dress. She gave Chloe a nervous thumbs up, took her place at the microphone, and gave us a quick wave from the stage. I gave her a reassuring smile, my hands clasped tightly in my lap. Chloe began to play the opening notes on the keyboard. They were soft, and a hush fell over the auditorium. Maya took a deep breath, and then she began to sing. Her voice was sweet and clear, filled with an earnestness that was captivating. She remembered every word, her eyes squeezed shut in concentration, her small body swaying slightly to the music. It was perfect. In that moment, she wasn't just my daughter, she was a little star shining under the bright stage lights. I could feel Talia next to me, her hand gripping my arm, both of us completely lost in the magic of the moment. I glanced back at the audience, a proud smile on my face, and that's when I saw it. Carol was no longer in her seat. My eyes scanned the aisle and I saw her. She was standing near the side of the stage, half hidden by the heavy velvet curtain. Her posture was rigid, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. Her face, illuminated by the stage lights, was a terrifying mixture of fury and resentment. A cold dread washed over me. What was she doing? The song was nearing its crescendo. Maya's voice grew stronger, more confident as she sang the final lines. And the dreams that you dare to dream really do come true. And then it happened. As Chloe played the last few notes, just as the audience was about to erupt in applause, Carol moved. She didn't run, she strode. She walked with a purpose that was horrifying to witness, marching directly onto the stage from the side. There was a collective gasp from the audience. The principal, who was standing in the wings, looked on in confusion. Maya, startled by the sudden appearance of someone else on stage, stopped singing. Her eyes widened in fear as she recognized who it was. "That's enough of that," Carol said, her voice sharp and loud, cutting through the stunned silence. Before anyone could react, she reached out and grabbed Maya's arm, not gently, not a guiding hand. She grabbed her with a force that was shocking, her fingers digging into my daughter's small bicep. "You're done," she hissed, her face contorted with a jealousy so ugly it was barely human. And then she pulled. She physically dragged my 7-year-old daughter away from the microphone and toward the edge of the stage. Maya cried out, a small, terrified sound of shock and pain. "Ow, you're hurting me." The spell was broken. The world, which had been moving in slow motion, snapped back into focus. I was on my feet, a roar of disbelief and rage tearing from my throat. "Carol, get your hands off him, my daughter." I wasn't the only one. Talia was right beside me, her face a mask of pure horror. Parents were shouting. The principal was rushing onto the stage. I vaulted over a row of chairs, my only thought to get to my child. By the time I reached the stage, the principal had intervened, forcing Carol to let go of Maya's arm. My little girl stumbled back, her face streaked with tears, a look of utter terror and confusion in her eyes. I scooped her up into my arms, holding her tightly against my chest as she sobbed. "It's okay, baby, I've got you, Daddy's here," I whispered, my own voice choked with emotion. I could feel her whole body trembling. Carol stood there, breathing heavily, looking not at me, not at Maya, but at the audience as if they were the ones who had done something wrong. "Her grandsons are champions," she shouted, her voice cracking. "They're the talented ones, not her." Greg had finally made it to the stage, his face pale with shock. He grabbed his mother's arm. "Mom, what are you doing? Let's go." Jenna was frozen in the aisle, her hands covering her mouth, her eyes wide with a familiar, helpless horror. I didn't look at them. I only had eyes for my daughter. I turned and carried her away from the chaos, away from the stage that was supposed to have been her moment of triumph and had instead become a scene of unbelievable violation. As I walked down the aisle, the auditorium was filled with the sound of angry murmuring and my daughter's heartbreaking sobs. The foundation hadn't just cracked. Carol had taken a sledgehammer to it, and the entire structure of our family had just collapsed into ruin. The minutes that followed were a blur of chaos and adrenaline. I carried Maya to the school's administrative office, a quiet space away from the bewildered and angry crowd that had gathered in the auditorium. Talia was right behind me, her hand a constant, steady presence on my back. The school principal, a kind but flustered man named Mr. Davis, let us in and immediately got Maya a small cup of water. Maya wouldn't let go of me. She buried her face in my shoulder, her small body racked with tremors. I could see the red marks from Carol's fingers already forming on her up. Her arm, a wave of fury so intense it made me feel sick, washed over me. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a simple case of jealousy. This was a physical assault on a child, on my child. "I am so sorry, Elias Talia," Mr. Davis said, his face pale. "In 20 years in education, I have never seen anything like this. We've asked the family to leave. The police have been called to take a statement. This is completely unacceptable." "Thank you," Talia said, her voice low and tight with controlled rage. "Our priority right now is Maya." We sat with her, murmuring words of comfort, telling her how brave she was, how wonderfully she sang, and that what happened was not her fault in any way. But the light in her eyes, the bright spark of confidence she'd had on stage, was gone. It had been replaced by a shadow of fear and humiliation. The damage was done, and it was far more than skin deep. After about 20 minutes, there was a tentative knock on the office door. It was Jenna, her face puffy and stained with tears. Greg stood behind her, looking down at the floor, unable to meet my eyes. "Elias, I am so sorry," Jenna began, her voice a broken whisper. "I don't know what to say, I just—" "What is there to say, Jenna?" I cut her off, my voice dangerously calm. I shifted Maya gently in my arms, never taking my eyes off my sister. "Your mother-in-law assaulted my daughter in front of her entire school." Greg finally looked up, a defensive expression already hardening his features. "Look, Elias, what my mom did it was out of line, but assault is a strong word. She was emotional, she just gets worked up about the boys, you know." I stared at him, incredulous. The sheer, unmitigated audacity of his words sent another jolt of anger through me. "Emotional?" I repeated, my voice rising. "Greg, look at my daughter, look at her arm, she is terrified. Your mother walked onto a stage, grabbed her and dragged her in front of hundreds of people. What would you call it if a stranger had done that to one of your sons? You'd call it assault. You'd call it kidnapping. The only difference here is that we have the misfortune of being related to the person who did it. He didn't mean it like that, Jenna stammered, wringing her hands. We're all in shock. Are you? Talia interjected, standing up to face them. Her voice was like ice. Because I'm not. We all saw this coming. We saw the jealousy, we heard the comments, we read the text messages. We all knew Carol was unhinged. The only difference is that Elias and I were worried about Maya's feelings. We never imagined we'd have to worry about her physical safety. You two enabled this. Your silence, your excuses, your constant refusal to stand up to her, this is the result. Greg's face flushed with anger. That's not fair, she's my mother. And Maya is my daughter, I shot back, my voice echoing in the small office. And as of tonight, my daughter's safety is the only thing I care about. We are pressing charges. The words hung in the air, heavy and irreversible. Jenna let out a small gasp. Elias, you can't, she pleaded. It would tear the family apart. She already did that, I said, my voice dropping to a low, determined tone. She did that the moment she laid her hands on Maya. This isn't a family squabble anymore. This is a police matter. We're getting a restraining order. Jenna started to sob openly, a messy, helpless sound. Greg looked at me with a mixture of fury and disbelief. He clearly thought this could be smoothed over with a half-hearted apology, that family loyalty would trump all else. He was wrong. I think you both should leave, Talia said, her voice leaving no room for argument. We need to speak with the police. We're done talking about this with you. Greg grabbed Jenna's arm. Fine, he spat, his voice filled with venom. But you're making a huge mistake, Elias. You're going to regret this. He pulled a still sobbing Jenna out of the office and slammed the door behind them. In the sudden silence, the only sound was Maya's quiet sniffles. I looked at Talia, my partner, my rock. Her face was set with a grim, unwavering resolve that mirrored my own. There was no regret in her eyes, only the fierce, protective love of a mother. The line had been drawn. It wasn't a line in the sand, easily washed away. It was a line carved in stone. On one side was my child, on the other was everyone else. The choice was never a choice at all. Walking into a police station to file a report against a family member is a uniquely surreal and disheartening experience. The air inside was stale, thick with the quiet desperation of other people's worst days. We sat with an officer, a patient, weary-looking woman named Officer Miller, and recounted the events of the talent show. We showed her the pictures Talia had taken of the red marks on Maya's arm. We described the history of Carol's escalating jealousy. Officer Miller Lee. Stend, her expression becoming more serious with every detail. When we got to the part about Carol's rant on stage, claiming her grandsons were the real talents, she shook her head slowly. This wasn't just a moment of poor judgment, she said. This was premeditated. The level of public humiliation was clearly part of the goal. With the police report filed, our lawyer advised us to seek an emergency protective order immediately, which we did. The judge, after reviewing the report and the photographic evidence, granted a temporary restraining order without hesitation. Carol was to have no contact with me, Talia, or Maya, and she was required to stay at least 500 yards away from our home, Maya's school, and our workplaces. The order was served to Carol the next day. The fallout was immediate. My phone was bombarded with calls and texts from Greg. They ranged from furious to pleading. You've gone too far, Elias, a restraining order against my mother. She's a 63-year-old woman. You're treating her like a criminal. Jenna is a wreck. You're destroying her. Just drop this and let's talk. I didn't respond to any of them. There was nothing to talk about. The legal system was involved now, a barrier of paper and law that we had been forced to erect to protect our child. For the first week there was silence, a tense, unnerving quiet. We tried to create a bubble of normalcy for Maya. We took her for ice cream, watched her favorite movies, and reassured her that she was safe, but the fear lingered. She had nightmares. She was hesitant to go to school, asking in a small voice if that lady would be there. Each question was a fresh twist of the knife in my heart. The first violation was subtle, so subtle I almost convinced myself I had imagined it. I was driving home from work about a mile from our house when I saw a familiar silver sedan parked on a side street. It was Carol's car. I slowed down, my heart starting to pound. I couldn't see who was inside, but I knew. I drove around the block, and by the time I came back, it was gone. I told Talia about it that night. It could be a coincidence, she said, though her voice lacked conviction. Maybe she was visiting someone. In our neighborhood, a mile from our house, a week after being served a restraining order, I countered. No, she was watching. 2 days later, the subtlety vanished. Talia had taken Maya to the grocery store. As they were in the cereal aisle, she felt a strange prickling sensation on the back of her neck, the feeling of being watched. She turned, and at the far end of the aisle, partially hidden behind a display of crackers, was Carol. She wasn't holding a basket. She wasn't shopping. She was just standing there, staring at them. Her expression was blank, devoid of emotion, which was somehow more terrifying than anger. Talia immediately abandoned our cart, grabbed Maya's hand, and walked quickly to the front of the store. She didn't look back. As they were leaving, she glanced at the parking lot and saw the silver sedan pull out and drive away in the opposite direction. That night, we filed our first police report for a violation of the restraining order. We had no proof other than Talia's word, so the police could only make a note of it and give Carol a formal warning over the phone. Predictably, she denied everything, claiming she was at her book club at the time. But the incidents kept coming. Her car would be parked outside the public library when Talia took Maya for story time. A parent from Maya's class mentioned seeing a woman who matched Carol's description watching the kids on the playground from across the street during recess. She never approached, she never spoke. She just appeared, a silent, menacing phantom haunting the edges of our lives. The feeling of being stalked is a unique kind of psychological torment. It poisons everything. A trip to the park was no longer a simple pleasure. It was an exercise in hypervigilance, constantly scanning the crowd for a familiar face or car. We installed a security camera system around our house, a constant, visible reminder that we were no longer safe in our own home. Maya became more withdrawn. The happy, carefree girl who loved to sing was replaced by a quiet, anxious child who flinched at loud noises and was scared to sleep in her own room. We found a wonderful child therapist for her, someone who could give her the tools to process the trauma that we, her parents, were struggling to handle ourselves. The restraining order, the piece of paper that was supposed to be our shield, felt utterly useless. Carol was treating it like a game, testing its boundaries, seeing how close she could get before facing a real consequence. She was sending us a clear message: your laws, your rules, your sense of security, they mean nothing to me. I am still in control. And the most terrifying part was that, in a way, she was right. She had stolen our peace of mind, and we had no idea how to get it back. The weeks bled into a month, each day layered with a low-grade humming anxiety. Carol's campaign of silent intimidation was working. We were living on a knife's edge, documenting every suspicious car, every potential sighting, feeling more like prisoners in our own lives. The breaking point came on a Saturday afternoon, a day that started with a rare glimmer of normalcy. We had decided to take Maya to a local fall festival at a farm just outside of town. There were pumpkins, hayrides, and games. For a few hours, it felt like old times. Maya even smiled, a genuine, unburdened smile, as she won a small stuffed animal at a ring toss game. Seeing that smile felt like watching the sun come out after a long storm. As we were walking towards the petting zoo, my phone vibrated. It was a text from an unknown number. My heart sank. I opened it, and the screen revealed a single photo taken from a distance. It was a picture of me, Talia, and Maya standing by the ring toss booth. Maya was holding her new prize. The photo was slightly blurry, clearly taken from a concealed position. Below the photo was a simple, chilling message: what a lovely family. It's a shame some people aren't allowed to be a part of it. I stopped dead in my tracks. A cold sweat broke out on my skin. She's here, I said to Talia, my voice barely a whisper. I showed her the phone. Talia's face went white. She immediately knelt and wrapped her arms around Maya, pulling her close, her body forming a protective shield around our daughter. We're leaving, now. My mind was racing. This was different. This wasn't just a sighting. This was direct contact. This was a threat. She was taunting us, letting us know she could get close enough to take a picture without us even knowing. It was a violation so profound it made me feel physically ill. As we hurried towards the parking lot, I scanned the crowd, my eyes darting everywhere. I spotted her then. She was standing near the exit, leaning against an old oak tree, the silver sedan parked just behind it. She was holding her phone, a small, triumphant smirk on her face. She saw me looking, and the smirk widened. She wanted me to see her. She wanted us to know she was in complete control of this encounter. That was her mistake. Talia, take Maya to the car. Lock the doors. Call 911. Tell them we have a restraining order violation in progress and photographic evidence, I said, my voice cold and hard. Elias, what are you going to do? She asked, her eyes wide with fear. I'm going to make sure the police have a witness who stays on the scene, I said. I started walking towards Carol, pulling out my own phone and hitting record on the video camera. Carol's smirk faltered as I approached, replaced by a flicker of surprise. She hadn't expected me to confront her. Hello, Carol, I said, keeping my voice level and my phone held steady, aimed directly at her face. You're in violation of a court order. You're less than 50 yards from my child. You sent a threatening message to my phone. The police are on their way. Her face hardened into a mask of defiance. I have every right to be at a public festival, she spat. I'm not talking to you. You don't have to talk to me, but you are not allowed to be near us. You are stalking my family. It's over, Carol. She let out a harsh, bitter laugh. You're the one who's over, Elias, you and your precious little girl. You turned my son against me. You ruined my family. You did this, I said, my voice unwavering. Every bit of this is because of you and your jealousy. People were starting to stare, giving us a wide berth. In the distance, I heard the faint wail of a siren growing closer. The sound seemed to break her composure. A flash of panic crossed her eyes. She turned and scrambled into her car, fumbling with the keys. "You'll regret this," she screamed through the open window as she started the engine. "The only thing I regret is not doing this sooner," I replied, still recording as she sped out of the parking lot, gravel crunching under her tires. The police arrived moments later. I showed them the video, the text message, the photo. This time there was no ambiguity. It was a clear, documented, and brazen violation. They put out an alert for her vehicle. The final confrontation with my sister happened that night. Jenna called me, her voice hysterical. Carol had been arrested an hour earlier at her home. "They arrested her, Ilias. They put her in a police car. How could you do this to a 63-year-old woman, to Greg's mother?" she shrieked into the phone. I was bone-tired, emotionally hollowed out, and done with the excuses. "I didn't do this, Jenna. Carol did. She stalked us. She threatened us. She broke the law repeatedly. What was I supposed to do? Wait until she did something worse? Wait until she got to Maya again?" "She would never hurt her," Jenna insisted, though her voice wavered. "She already did, i.e." Exploded, my own voice cracking with the strain of it all. "She hurt her, Jenna. Don't you understand that? She traumatized her. And you just stood by and let it happen. You stood by while she belittled her. You stood by while she assaulted her, and you are standing by now while she terrorizes her. You have made your choice. You chose your monster-in-law over your own family, over your niece." A choked sob came from the other end of the line. "It's not that simple." "It is," I said, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. "It is exactly that simple. We're done, Jenna. Until you and Greg can wake up and see the damage that woman has caused and definitively choose to protect your family and ours from her, we are done. Do not call me again." I ended the call before she could reply. I slid down against the wall in my hallway, the phone clattering to the floor. The silence in the house was immense. I had just severed the last tie to my sister. The war with Carol was over, but the cost had been immense. I had won the battle for my daughter's safety, but in the process I had lost a sister. The legal consequences for Carol were for once satisfyingly real. With the undeniable evidence from the fall festival, the photo, the text message, and my video of the confrontation, the judge had no patience for her excuses. Her violation was flagrant and malicious. The temporary restraining order was made permanent, extended for a period of 5 years. She was sentenced to mandatory psychological evaluation, a hefty fine, and a suspended sentence that would mean immediate jail time if she ever violated the order again. The law had finally put teeth into our shield. The news of the verdict brought a profound, if somber, sense of relief. It felt like the sky, which had been a constant, oppressive gray for months, was finally showing a patch of blue. The constant hypervigilance began to recede. We stopped scanning every crowd, stopped checking over our shoulders, stopped seeing a silver sedan in every shadow. The silence from Jenna and Greg was absolute. We didn't hear from them, not after the arrest, not after the verdict, not at all. It was a strange and painful amputation. A whole branch of our family tree had been sawed off and the wound was still raw. There were moments of sharp, unexpected grief, seeing a picture of Jenna and me as kids or driving past the park where we used to play. But whenever the sadness crept in, I would look at Maya, and I would know with every fiber of my being that I had made the right choice. Maya's recovery was a slow and gentle process. Her therapist was a gift, helping her untangle the complex feelings of fear, shame, and confusion that the incident had left behind. She helped Maya find her voice again, not just for singing, but for expressing her fears. We learned to listen, to validate her feelings, and to constantly reinforce the message that she was safe and loved. Slowly but surely, the light began to return to her eyes. One afternoon, about 2 months after Carol's arrest, I heard a sound coming from her room. It was quiet, tentative at first, then a little stronger. She was singing. It was Somewhere Over the Rainbow. It was a silly song from a cartoon she loved. I stood outside her door, my eyes filling with tears, and just listened. It was the most beautiful sound in the world. Our life found a new normal. It was smaller, quieter. Holidays were just the three of us, me, Talia, and Maya. We built new traditions. Our home, once a place of fear where we huddled behind security cameras, became our sanctuary again. Talia and I grew even closer, our partnership forged into something unbreakable by the fire we had walked through. We were a team, united and absolute in our mission to protect our little family. I know that some people, maybe even some listening to this story now, might think I went too far. They might echo Greg's words that she's an old woman or Jenna's plea that it would tear the family apart. They might say that family is everything and that you should forgive and forget. But I've learned that family isn't just about blood, it's about trust, it's about respect, and above all, it's about safety. When someone in your family becomes a source of danger to your child, be it emotional, psychological, or physical, the title of family no longer grants them a free pass. Your first and most sacred duty is to your child. I chose to build a smaller, stronger wall around my daughter than to live in a sprawling, dilapidated house with a monster in the next room. I will never, for 1 second, regret that choice.